Dear learners, today we are going to discuss about the selection process. We'll start with what is selection and then we'll discuss what is the difference between selection and recruitment, and we'll elaborately discuss what are all the steps involved in the selection process. First, let us understand what is selection. So once the applicant pool is prepared, the next step of the HR department is to implement the predetermined selection process in order to select the best candidate for the job. The aim of this process is to finally end up with the candidates who are best suited for the vacant jobs. So this is the purpose of selection. The organizations must be able to distinguish the applicants who are most likely to perform, the employees those who are likely to perform, and the employees those who are not performing well, so and who are less suitable for the organizations. So that is the purpose of selection, and that is the main intention of the selection process. So here goes the definition of selection process or selection. So selection is a systematic process of identifying suitable candidates for the available jobs from the available applicant pool. So this is what selection is. And this selection definition is given by many persons, and let us see the definitions given by various persons now. So this is the definition given by Dale Yoder. According to him, selection is the process by which the candidates for employment are divided into two different classes. One is those who will be offered employment and those who will not. So that is the definition given by Dale Yoder about selection. And there are some other definitions also for the selection. So this is the definition given by David A. DiCenso. So he actually defined selection as it is a managerial decision-making process to predict which job applicants will be successful if hired. So that is the definition given by David A. DiCenso. So these are some of the definitions given by various persons about selection. So now we can able to understand what is the selection process. But many times we have some confusion on both the terms selection and recruitment, but they are different. So the purpose of both the recruitment and selection process is entirely different. So let us understand what is the difference between this selection process and the recruitment process. We'll now discuss what is the difference between recruitment and selection now. The recruitment process, it begins with the recruitment of candidates from different sources. So that is the process of procurement actually begins with the recruitment of candidates from different sources. And here with respect to selection, the procurement will actually ends up with the selection of the candidates, of the necessary number of suitable number of candidates for a job. So that is the major difference between the selection and recruitment. And the next difference is the aim of recruitment is to gather as many applications as possible for the job in an organization, and hence it is viewed as a positive task, because the main intention of the recruitment is to gather as many applicants as possible. But for selection process, this actually attempts to eliminate applicants in different stages to actually end up with the smaller number of applicants or the requisite candidates, and it is thus viewed as a negative task. So that is the second difference which differentiates both the selection and recruitment. And the next one is recruitment is comparatively easy, as it does not require any sort of expertise in conducting the recruitment. But as far as selection is concerned, it is somewhat a difficult job, as it involves or requires specialized knowledge and skills on the part of the selectors to choose the right number or the best candidates by predicting their likely performance. So that is also another difference which distinguishes both recruitment and selection. And the recruitment is basically a searching function, as it searches for prospective candidates for the job offered. But here in selection, it is basically a screening function, as it screens the candidates for their suitability for the job offered. So that makes the difference between selection and recruitment. The phases of the selection process, it consists of 3 different phases. The first phase is measurement phase. So in this measurement phase, this involves verification of the accuracy and consistency of ensuring selection techniques. So this phase involves the verification of the accuracy and consistency of the selection techniques will be made in the first phase. And the second phase is decision making. So this phase, it ensures the completeness of the employee data to make accurate and uncompromising hiring selection decision. So what sort of decision, the selection decision has to be used by the organization. So what is the level of information about the job applicants that we are having in our hand. So all those information will be available in the second phase. So by making use of that information, we can make the decision making here in the second phase. So that is the second phase in the selection process. And the third phase is about the evaluation. So evaluation is the role and effectiveness of the selection process will be evaluated from the organizational perspective. So we can actually divide the whole selection process into 3 phases. One which is measurement, and the second one is decision making, and the third one is evaluation. So these are the 3 phases in the selection process. Let us discuss about different steps in the selection process. So here the selection process, it involves various steps, and this is the first step, which is employment application forms or blanks. So this is actually a standardized format to collect necessary information about the candidate, about the necessary information about the candidate to determine whether he is suitable for the job. So that sort of information is actually collected in the first stage, that is employment application forms or blanks. And the second stage, there is a selection test. So this is it is a psychological test for comparing and contrasting the behavior of 2 or more persons on the basis of standardized measure in order to predict the their likely job performance if selected. So that is the selection test. And the next one is selection interview. The next step is the selection interview. This is actually a face-to-face conversation with the candidate to collect the required information about the candidate that could not be collected through other selection steps or tools to determine his ability and to determine his suitability for the job. So this selection interview, it is a face-to-face conversation with the candidate and to collect the required information about the candidate, which cannot be collected through other selection tools. And the next one is reference check. So this is actually a process of cross-checking the information provided by the candidate in different stages of the selection process, and they'll be giving the references cited by the candidates themselves. So in this stage, what they'll do is they'll cross-check the information provided by the candidates in different stages of the selection process. And the next stage is the physical examination. So after verifying the references, it is the final test that has to be conducted upon candidates. So this is actually a medical test to ensure that the candidates meet the physical requirements of the job. So this is another step in the selection process. And finally, after conducting all the different types of tests, job offer is provided to the candidate, to the successful candidate. So it is actually a formal communication which specifies the details of job offer made to the specified or the selected candidates. So while providing the job offer to the selected candidates, normally the candidates, this job offer generally provides information about the job description, job specification, and the reporting authority. So and pay particulars, and also a kind of like leave eligibility. So all these information will be provided during the job offer. So this job offer contains all the information related to job description, then reporting authority, pay packages or the pay particulars, and also leave eligibility. So once suitable candidates are identified at the end of the selection process, the organization would proceed with the issue of job offers to the selected candidates. So that is the end in the selection process. So we'll now discuss in elaborated manner each and every step involved in the selection process. So this is the first stage, which is employment application forms or blanks. So in this process, the purpose of the application, employment application forms or bank, is to collect the necessary information from about an applicant in a short span of time. And these bits of information are extremely important in determining the suitability of the applicants for the job, and also in predicting their likely job performance. So that is the purpose behind this employment application blanks or forms. The information collected in this stage, employment application forms or blanks, that will be that must be relevant, it should be reliable, and it should be accurate for decision making. To achieve this, the application form must be prepared carefully, and it should be reviewed regularly to ensure both the reliability and validity of the information gathered. So here some organizations, they are also making use of some weighted application forms. So it is to gather relevant information and also to predict the chance of success for a candidate uh, in the organization, so in the job. So here the organization will be, say for example, the organization will be giving more weightage to some characteristics in its application blanks. So in such cases, say for example, a sales personnel is required in an organization, and this sales personnel requires good communication skills, and so that will definitely contribute to the success in selling. So the application blank will have more weightage towards the communication skills. So this is called as the weighted application blanks. So some organizations, they are also making use of this weighted application blanks where the candidates can fill the required skill for the organization, and so this is called as employment application forms or blanks, and that is the purpose behind this application blanks or forms. And here most of the employment application forms will be containing the information about the biographical information, so which is provided here. So this actually includes the name of the applicant and the father's name, the date of birth, the sex, age, gender, nationality. So whatever the geographical, whatever the demographic information will be provided here in this biographical information. And the next goes with educational qualifications. So here the educational qualification can include the courses that they have completed, then year of passing, and they can also include the subjects studied, and they can also include the percentage of marks secured. The next information which is included in this employment application blank is work experience. So here the work experience, like the positions already held, and the tenure in each position, and the nature of job, and work and pay benefits, and they also can include details about the present employers, the previous employers, and explanation for the break in employment. So all that are provided under work experience. And the next one is pay and other perquisites. So these are some of the information about the candidate's expectation from about the salary and other sorts of benefits. And the next one is the additional information like participation in NSS, and one of the member in NSS, participation in sports, extracurricular activities, the cultural activities, and they can also have nation building activities such as NSS, NCC. So if he is a member in all such things, they can mention those under this additional information. And finally, the references section, it is actually, this includes the names and addresses of the people, like the few references who have knowledge about the applicant, and who may also be contacted by the organization if required. So these are some of the important things that are included in this employment application blanks or forms. So the next step is the selection test. So this is the next step in the selection process. So test is We all know that test is actually a standardized assessment of a particular sample, and the critical behavior of the candidates also will be examined through the selection test in order to determine whether he is suitable for the job. So that is the purpose behind this selection test. So here we have different types of selection test, and one such selection test will be psychological test. So before getting into what are the different psychological tests, we'll be just discussing about the characteristics of psychological test. So here the first characteristic is it should be objective. So it should be objective, meaning it refers to the validity and reliability of the measuring tools. So the psychological test, whatever the test that they are going to perform, it should be valid and it should be a reliable measuring tool. And the second one is standardization. It means that there is uniformity in the procedure followed in conducting the test. So this psychological test will be uniform in nature, so in the procedure, and so that will be followed in conducting the test. And the next important characteristic is sample of behavior. It refers to the test contents which should predict a representative sample of the eventual behavior of the candidates. So these are the different types or the different characteristics of psychological test. So it should be objective, it should be standardized, and we could be able to predict the behavior, the representative sample of the eventual behavior of the candidates. So these are the important characteristics of psychological test. And these are the different types of psychological test that selection process includes. So here the psychological test includes ability test, personality test, interest test, honesty or integrity test. And this ability test, in turn, it includes intelligence test, aptitude test, and achievement test. So these are different types of psychological tests that are conducted during selection process. So now we'll discuss what are the different types of tests and what is the purpose of conducting those tests. So let us start with different types of ability test. So the first test under ability test is intelligence test. So this is for measuring the IQ within the individual. So the main aim of this intelligence test is to measure the general intellectual abilities of the candidate. And the main aim of this intelligence test is to measure the general intellectual abilities of a person. And this test also assesses the memory, then the vocabulary, then verbal comprehension and thought fluency, and also their inductive reasoning skills and the numerical skills of a candidate. So all these are some of the skills that are tested under this intelligence quotient test. And the next test is the aptitude test. So here the aptitude test is meant for measuring the latent talents of a person that may be crucial to performing the job successfully. So here the latent talents, it denotes. So this aptitude test is actually meant for the candidates who have no previous experience, who are freshers. And so here in this aptitude test, several skills are tested, and this is preferably for the persons who are engineers, who are designers, and who are machinists. So those people require this sort of aptitude skills to perform the job successfully. So this kind of test, it actually measures the latent talents of a person, which is very, very crucial to perform a particular job. So this is with respect to aptitude test. And the next one is achievement test. So here the achievement test is the main aim of the achievement test is to measure the knowledge gained by a person in his or her job. It actually evaluates the claims made by the job holders regarding their performance and regarding their skills acquired in the job. So we can also say the example for achievement test is say for example a typist. So for a typist, the speed and accuracy of a typist is very important in his job. So that is the achievement test that we can give for the typist. So that is achievement test, and we can also take this as example for the achievement test. And here the subject knowledge of the people who are studying in schools and colleges can also be treated as the achievement test, and these are some of the examples of achievement test. So these are the different types of test which will be coming under the ability test. And next test is the personality test. So this personality test, it actually proposes to assess and predict the basic characteristics of a person. So it is actually very, very useful in predicting the future performance of the candidate. So after he is getting selected and inducted into the organization, what sort of behavioral change that he can undergo, and how he will perform in the future. So that kind of predictions can be made possible by the use of this personality test. So this personality test, as I already mentioned, that it is actually measuring the basic characteristics of a particular candidate. And this personality test includes these many tests: Rorschach blot test, which is simply called as RBT, and thematic apperception test, Minnesota multiphasic personality inventory, which is MMPI, and Myers-Briggs type indicator, which is MBIT. And these are some of the popular forms of personality tests that are used during the selection process. And apart from these tests, there are so many other tests are also available to test the basic characteristics of a particular candidate. And there is another test called projective test. So this is actually ideal for testing the intangible characteristics of that make up the personality of an individual. So these are some of the personality tests that can be used in the selection process. The next test is interest test. So the aim of this interest test is to know the interest and the attitude, the preference of a person towards the job offered. So that is the purpose behind this interest test. So we are having like a test which measures person's mental and physical abilities. That is not sufficient to achieve a desirable job performance, and hence this kind of test, apart from those tests, we also have interest test in order to measure what is the interest level that the candidate have, and what is their attitude, and what is their preference of a person, of a candidate towards the job offered. So here so these are some of the interesting tests or the interest test, which are well-known interest test, which is Cooder preference record and strong vocational interest blank. So these two are some well-known interest tests that are available here in India, and some organizations, they are making use of these simple interest test in the selection process. And the next test is on checking the honesty and integrity part of a candidate. So in an honesty and integrity test, the questions are asked in such a way that the attitude and actual behavior of the candidates can be found out. So in this test, we can be like, organization may feel a need to ascertain the honesty of the candidates, to ensure that they have not furnished any false information in the application blank. So this is a kind of test that will be conducted, and it is very rarely used in India. This type of honesty or integrity test is very rarely in use. So these are some of the different tests which are available under the psychological tests. So we have come across ability test, personality test, interest test, honesty or integrity test. So here we have to just evaluate all the types of psychological tests, and we have to discuss about various merits these psychological tests have. So the first one is, it is actually objective in evaluation. So these are some of the merits for these psychological tests. So the first one is, it is objective in evaluation. This means that the selection tests are highly reliable, and they are impartial tools to measure and choose the best candidate or the best candidate for a job. And when we compare other selection techniques like interviews, the psychological tests are free from the bias, personal bias, and prejudice. So this is the objective in evaluation. And the second one is, it is ideal for large groups. So since this is for large groups, so that is actually the inherent advantage of the selection test, because it can be simultaneously administered to very large number of applicants. And when suitable candidates are to be chosen from a big pool of applicants, the big pool of candidates, this selection test is the only time-saving and cost-effective method. So here, and hence we can say that this is an ideal method for large groups. And it is actually a predictor of intangible talents. So this is another merit for the psychological test, because the selection tests are capable of predicting the talents and skills that are not, or that are invisible and abstract in nature. So they can measure not only the performance but also the potential of the prospective candidates. So that is predictor of intangible talents. Goal specific and target oriented. So that is another advantage from this psychological test. So here the employers have the option to choose from a variety of selection tests, and they can make use of these tests to measure the specific quantity of specific quality of an applicant. So and for instance, say for example, achievement test. So achievement tests may be used to identify the existing performance of the candidates, while aptitude tests are appropriate for measuring the future performance. So, and hence we can very well say that it is goal specific and target oriented. And the last one is record for future. So here the records pertaining to the selection test can be preserved for the future references and researches. So these are some of the merits that psychological tests have, and it also has some limitations. So here the limitation goes like this. It lacks flexibility because this psychological test have a predefined set of tools that have to be used without making any major changes. So that is another drawback for this psychological test, because it lacks flexibility and it is unsuitable for smaller groups, because we need to have a large pool of applicants in our hand, and we can be able to conduct the psychological test if we have a large number of applicants. So then only we can be able to minimize the cost, and hence this is not suitable for the smaller groups of people, where lots and lots of tests should not be conducted for very small number of people, such that the cost will be get maximized. So these are the two different limitations with respect to the psychological test. The next step is developing a testing program or developing a test program. So here in this step, since the purpose of conducting a test is to predict how the applicant would perform if he is selected for the particular job, then organizations need to make a strategic decision regarding the development of a testing program, and they must begin the preparation for planning, development and administration of the testing program with due care and diligence. The steps that has to be followed for developing a successful test program are determining the job and skill requirements, deciding the types of test, developing the success criteria, administering the test, and evaluating the results. So these are some of the steps that are necessary for a successful testing program. So first step is determining the jobs and skill requirements. So this is the first and foremost step in the process of developing a testing program, to determine the qualities and skills that are essential for an effective job performance. So here the job description, it specifies the duties and responsibilities associated with the job, while job specification, it means the human qualities necessary to perform the job. So it is also essential to identify the human qualities that can predict success on the job. So that is the first step. So determining the job and skill requirements. So that is the first and foremost step. And then it goes on with deciding the type of test. So here, once the human qualities essential for the successful performance of a job are identified, the next step is to determine the series of tests to be undertaken by the candidate and the qualities that he has to be measured. So while choosing the test, the reliability and validity and the relevance of the results of the test results are important considerations. So here, depending upon the requirement, the organization may develop their own testing tools, or it can make use of some other published testing tools for testing the like the testing the essential qualities of the people coming for the selection process. So that is the second stage, deciding the type of test. The next is developing the success criteria. So here the next course of action is to develop the criteria required for each job. So here criteria, it is nothing but the standard of success. So that these criteria will actually like it depends upon how likely the candidates are successful in their jobs. The organization must determine what constitutes the success on the job. And here, say for example, the factors like quantity and quality of the goods produced, and absenteeism, attrition rate, and accident history, and the length of service. So all these can be considered to be the criteria which determine the success of a particular employee staying in the job. So here another person called Roger, he has actually developed a 7-point plan for determining the criteria for the candidate selection. So here he has the plan covers these many aspects of these many elements. So here the physical makeup, so that is considered to be one of the criteria. So which is the health, the physique, the appearance of the employees. So that is the physical makeup. And the next one is attainments. So here the education, the qualification, and the experience. So that also can be fixed as the criteria. And general intelligence. So intelligence is the fundamental intellectual capacity of the individual. And special aptitudes. So if he has mechanical skills or the computer skills, the programming skills, so all these are considered to be special aptitudes skills. And interests. So interests can include the intellectual skills and practical skills, the like the constructional skills, and physically active, and he's very social with all the other employees. So all these will be coming under interests. And disposition. So disposition is somehow related with his personality traits and circumstances. So the domestic circumstances and the occupation of the family. So that all these are the what the plan developed by Roger. So he has actually developed a 7-point plan for determining the criteria for a test program. So for the candidate selection, he has developed the criteria which is based on all the 7 things that I have listed now. And after developing the success criteria, administering the test is the next stage. So here during administration of this of the tests, having decided the human traits to be measured and the type of tests and the success criteria, the next step is to administer the test to the candidate. So here the candidate, he may be outsiders seeking employment in the organization, or the existing employees looking for promotion. So we have already studied different sources of recruitment and things like that. So the candidates, they may be outsiders seeking a job in the organization, or he might be the existing employee looking for promotion. So as far as possible, the testing conditions must be normal. So here he should not feel anything different. So about the tests. So here in this stage, we have to administer the test to the candidate. And finally, we have to go with evaluating the results. So this is the last stage, and the results are matched with the success criteria to determine whether the applicant succeeded or he has actually succeeded in the test. So there should be a significant relationship between the scores of the applicant and the performance criteria, and it should be continuously studied to see whether the applicant has got or has been placed in 3-point scores, like high performer or a low performer or an average performer. So in this stage, we will be evaluating the results based on the success criteria and what is the score that he has got. So in this stage, we'll be evaluating the results. So if we follow all these stages, we could be able to develop a test program in a successful manner. The next process is the selection interview. So here interview, it is one of the most widely used method and widely used means of collecting necessary information about the applicants, and it is an indispensable part of any selection procedure, and it also provides an opportunity for the employer to have a face-to-face interaction to collect information from the candidate to determine his or her suitability for the job. So here the organization, they may require one or more number of interviews for an applicant depending upon the nature and the number of job vacancies. So if we have more number of job vacancies are there, then it will be the organization has to minimize the number of interviews. And in case if we have a very short number of people required, so in that case they may go for an in-depth interview about the candidate competencies. And so this is the selection interview process, which will be a face-to-face conversation where we can able to get some more information about the candidate apart from the whatever the details that they have flourished in the application blank. Here in this selection interview, we have different kinds of interviews which the interviewer can choose. These are some of the interview methods. First one is panel interview, then is structured interview, unstructured interview, in-depth interview, and stress interview. So we'll see what is these interview types in detail. So the first one is structured interview. So in this method, the interviewer will be having a predetermined set of questions, and he will be asking those questions to the interviewee, and the interviewee will be facing with the same kind of questions, and hence a kind of uniformity will be there in this structured interview. And so this method, since it ensures uniformity in the interview process, and it will be it will be very easy for comparing the candidates' answers, and so that is actually a kind of advantage that we are having in this structured interview, and it enjoys better validity and reliability when we compare that with other interview types. So here in this structured interview, we are having these many advantages. And in case of unstructured interview, so this is actually a type which is called as a non-directive, or it is like a free interview type. So here in this type of interview, the interviewer will not have any pre-plan. He will not pre-plan the questions to be asked. So in fact, he or she decides on the questions as the interview proceeds. So here interviewers generally avoid asking the same or similar questions, and here the qualities like the analytical skills, the presence of mind, and motivation, so all these are tested in this unstructured interview. So however, the kind of interview usually suffers from the lack of uniformity and objectivity, because the time plays a lot here in this unstructured interview, and it may vary from candidate to candidate, and it will be very difficult to compare what is the response from each and every candidate for different questions. So this is actually with respect to unstructured interview. So and the next method is in-depth interview. So here in this method, the purpose of conducting in-depth interview is to discuss the information concerning the candidate in detail. So they'll be asking the abilities, the competencies. So they'll be giving the scenario based questions to identify their abilities and competencies. And this in-depth interview is to ensure that no vital information is missed out. So apart from the details that he has furnished in the employment application blank, so this in this in-depth interview, they like the interviewer will be collecting lots and lots of information about the candidate, and hence this is called as an in-depth interview. And the next method is the stress interview. So here the intention of conducting this kind of stress interview is to identify the sensitive candidates who have very low stress tolerance. So and hence the purpose of conducting the stress interview is to put the candidate in an uncomfortable situation and see how he is capable of coming out of that stressful condition. So how he is able to handle that stress. So that is the purpose of conducting this kind of stress interview. And we have panel interview. So here there will be a panel which consists of 2 or more interviewers, so who will be from different background, from different fields. So here the interviewers will be generally, since they are generally from different backgrounds and different fields, so they will be checking the knowledge of the interviewee on different aspects. So one from might be from marketing, and another from might be from human resource, and another one from operations. So how the candidate is strengthened with all the concepts that are required for that particular job. So this is called as the panel interview, and these are the different kinds of interviews. And this is another type, which is computerized interview. So here the computerized interviews, the applicant is asked like oral questions, like so actually the computerized interviews replies will be recorded, and the computerized interviews are often used as preliminary interviews. So this kind of interviews will be like it will be for the freshers, where they will not have any kind of previous experience. So at that stage, this computerized interview will be conducted for them. And so these are some of the interview methods that selection procedure can include.